Hey y'all, it's your girl Sia, and I'm back with another video, y'all. I am exhausted. That's number one. I'm realizing for the firm right now, tax season has actually been picking up, whereas obviously, like February into March, it was still pretty slow. Now we're hitting a rush that um usually it starts occurring around February, March, but we're hitting it more towards April, which is very difficult, but it's okay. It's part of the tax process. Um, so I'm very tired, and I know a lot of people are probably like, well, you don't do anything physically. A lot of my work is mental, it's a mental thoughts. It's people taking energy away from me kind of deal. Like I've had two meetings back to back this today, right? And I can only expect those face-to-face meetings to really pick up. um What's interesting though, and I really wanted to have this, conversation, is because while I was at work, I obviously have some downtime, especially when I'm on a computer. So I just wanted to point out a post that I thought was very imperative as it relates to women who really provide and or used to providing for themselves. So this woman says a lot of women have become accustomed to being their own providers, having their own place, their own car, and being the more responsible party in their relationships, that they don't know what it feels like to trust someone to take care of them. And a lot of men are disciplined or lack discipline and purpose, leading them to fall victim to their distractions. Now I would say this, right? When I read this post, I took it as the everyday woman who really has her own. And I'm not, when I think of that image, I'm not thinking in terms of Section 8. Okay. There's no shade to people who live off of Section 8, but when I read this post and I'm looking at a provider, I'm looking at a stable woman who is able to provide above and beyond for herself. And I say above and beyond because a lot of times, unless people on Section 8, right, or housing, unless they are, got some extra income on the side, a lot of those people are kind of living like really scrounging up change, right? And so to me, that's not necessarily providing for yourself. And I'll explain all this when I get to the next step. But I just wanted to be clear. When I hear this, I'm looking at women, I'm thinking of women with good credit, with their own places, with their ability to pay their rent with cash, or a check or a debit card, whatever that looks like. A woman who is pretty much stable in the sense that she's got her own car, right? She's got her career going. She's got a 401k, maybe not, right? Because shout out to those women who don't even have that, right? But at least you're able to provide for self. You have a career and you're working towards those things, right? That's what I think about when this woman is talking about, women providers, right? And she is accurate in the sense that it's not that it's difficult for me to trust, and maybe it is, right? But I think that when you have and move with a certain level of wisdom, right, you learn that certain things work and certain things do not work, okay? And so when you're in situations where people are doing the same thing over and over and over and over and over again to get the same results, and you're able to see that, hey, that's not working. You try to tell the person it's not working and they lash out or whatever. You try to guide the person to tell them, it's like, I could lead a horse to water but I can't make you drink it type shit. Okay. So when I'm listening to this in my mind, I'm like, well, yeah, I mean, maybe it's a trust issue, but I think it's more of a lack of leadership. I don't know that I have an issue with following as much as I would have an issue with um as much as I would have an issue with and I'm trying to think of the better word for it. A person who is not like really on and serving their purpose in my space and in my life. Okay. So I want to be clear that it's not a trust thing as much it is show improve thing, right? And I feel like anytime we utilize words, your words should always, for the most part, align, because I get humans are humans, but should align with your actions, right? And when they don't, that causes a mistrust. Okay. Now, she says a lot of men lack discipline and purpose, leading them to fall victim to their distractions. Now, obviously, you can fill in the blanks here, right? Because there's so many distractions men are, distracted by, and or so many situations where males lack leadership and discipline, right? Because discipline is part of what it means to be a leader. And so in this case, if I'm looking at, two people, the birds and the bees, right? That conversation. I'm looking at individuals who don't exercise discipline as it relates to their other head, right? And unfortunately, they do fall victim to, their distractions. Again, you could see this in so many different ways, but I feel like I've already painted the picture, right? So here we go, and I'm going to pull this up really quick. Bear with me. Where this man enters the conversation, right? And I had to stop arguing and going back and forth again with individuals like this, because ultimately the conversation is going like nowhere, right? So this man decides he wants to say, let me pull it up on my end so I can see it better. As a matter of fact, I'm gonna make it easy. So what this men are so naive as it pertains to women. So, and this is a black man talking because only he would talk like this, right? But he had some nerve, right, to say women kicked men out by choosing government assistance. We're in 2024. Okay. And while that may be true, I don't understand and I don't comprehend why the argument and the conversation went here. Okay? Because obviously, off the rip, you're on a whole other subject than what the hell this lady is talking about. She's talking about male accountability, men being accountable for what men do. The world, this is the thing. Men seem to fail to understand that they do not control. It's like this. I should never, and I got to work on this too, and women do too, but you don't, basically, your job as a human, as a person, is to focus on the things that you can control, not the things that you cannot. And it's very difficult to do at times. However, this one individual cannot change the fact that women were supposedly kicked out of the homes by choosing government assistance. This implies, to even go to this level of conversation, it implies that this man is claiming that the women who, let's go back to her initial post, because she, the women that this woman was talking about, right? The women providers, right? The ones that have their own place, their own car, and are being more responsible, the more responsible party in their relationships, right? I'm not thinking of Section 8, bro. Like, I'm really not. And for Black men to imply that this is why men don't do, listen, it is 2024 and you should be doing for yourself regardless. Like I've always said, self first. And it ain't leeching off of women, right? I mean, obviously, if the women want to do it, I mean, I listen, at this point, some women have to learn the hard way, right? But realistically, I don't see many women really just living off the government like that. Like I know there's a percentage of women, um and I know that there's a percentage of men who have chosen to not be better for the sake of their family. Meaning that as a woman, if I'm married to you and we're dating, well, I don't know about dating, but if I'm married to you and I have a child with you, right? We're married, right? Because that's the only way that to me any of it really, really is, I don't know, and you decide, you tell me that you can't provide for the kid that you created and the relationship that you embarked upon, that tells me you are absolutely, I don't want to say this, but for a lack of better terms, economically, you are worthless. And the reality of it is, I don't want to have a child with a man who can't do those things, right? Because I only want the best for my child, right? It has nothing to do with me, right? Although, I prefer to be treated the best too, right? But I think that when you're doing something as serious as starting a family, you should be preparing, men should be preparing quite young to marry and be saving to do so. This is not a situation where you get to just get into a relationship and now you're not held accountable to what it is that you said you want. That's just not what it is. And so when this man tells me, right, and he goes into the Section 8 nonsense, right? I told him, I said, in 2024, and this is real talk, I said the argument, this argument is not relevant. Most women are not living off of Section 8 in housing, sir. And that's the truth. When you're looking up statistics, right? And I'm sure there's more to this than what meets the eye, but I just did a quick Google search, right? And I know that's not how you do statistics, and you can dig deeper if you really wanted to. But Google throws out some numbers, 22%, and I think it was like 6% for men, right? But how many men are homeless on the streets with nowhere to go? So this is why I say this, because it appears to me that there are a lot of men who get women pregnant, who, because the woman has something, she's able to fight for her child and get resources for her child through the use of the government. But if a man has nothing and you choose to not build yourself and or you choose to walk away from your family, well, you're not kind of counted in those rankings, right? You're not counted in those numbers. It's only the men who are actively seeking a level of Section 8, right? That they're able to obtain it, right? So it's very interesting to me that a man would throw out Section 8 as if all women, majority of us are on Section 8. That's not the case. Majority means almost all. If all you're dating, if your mental only allows you to date Section 8, well, then you'll date what you are, right? You're going to date Section 8 women. If that's all you know, then maybe that says something about you, sir. I'm just saying, because there's plenty of women out here really doing it. We striving anyway. But that's not a point that I have to prove to this man, right? So when I said, most women are not living off of Section 8 in housing. Secondly, you can't kick a man out of a home he doesn't reside in. So that's the thing. How is it? See, and I think he and I were on two different levels, but again, I think I understood her more than he understood her, and or he did not want to acknowledge what was actually being said. Because in 2024, how I'm looking at it is I'm a woman, right? I got myself together, I got my own place, my own car, right? I'm the provider for me, right? Essentially, and my daughter, right? And so make it make sense. I don't have any Section 8, and I don't have a man to kick out because there's no man that resides here. So I guess I'm confused with that level of conversation, because there are women every day, all day, that don't meet these standards that he's talking about. So what does that say for the women who aren't on Section 8? And why, again, men, do you aspire anything better than Section 8, or is that all you can get because of your mental and your choices in life? Do you understand me? We have to begin to have the real conversation, because I don't know how this man came out with Section 8 and housing and stuff. It doesn't apply. I mean, at least not from what I saw. And again, I'm not looking at Section 8 women in that same category. I think they're two different calibers of women. Now, again, if you're providing for yourself, whether that be Section 8 and everything else, cool. But to me, unless you're able to eat off of Section 8, and I mean really, really eat, you're on welfare or whatever, and you're able to make money, like you should be balling better than me, like you balling better than LeBron, you feel me? Then to me, you're always going to be, you are still not a certain caliber that would have came to mind when I heard this. Okay. I think that when most people read this post, you're not naturally thinking, oh, Section 8. Like, I don't know, right? The mental is not there off the rip. So I said, and then he said, I said, he doesn't, said, we are going to need you all to catch up to reality and stop regurgitating an argument that really doesn't apply. And that's the truth. You have about 80% of women, right, that are not necessarily on Section 8. If 22% of women make up Section 8 in welfare, what does that say about all the other 80% of women? Like, I think that's where people are screwing up. That's not majority of women. That's a handful of women. Really? So I say all these things because I think it's imperative. And then this is what's so crazy, because I told him he was very degenerate, right? Like, I don't like, because he kept going on. And I said, did you read what she stated? Did you actually read the post? Did you comprehend it? So, of course, he took it some type of way and was like, well, I can comprehend. Did you comprehend what I said? But I'm thinking that's not the argument. That's not the topic that's being presented. So again, guys, I don't know what it is about education and mental, or the lack of education and mental, but my thing is this. How the fuck does she go from talking about women providers? So I'm just thinking of women who got their shit together. That's really what comes to mind. To Section 8, right? And then you expect people to want to argue back with you about your like Section 8. Like, I don't know how to argue that because that's not what the conversation was about. It's like, stay on topic. Why is it that anytime a woman makes an argument as it pertains to men, he's got to go off topic with it? It's like, okay, that may be true, but that's not the conversation being presented. What does that have to do with men being distracted and lacking a level of discipline? What the fuck does that got to do with anything? Like, explain it to me. So, what does women have to do on Section 8? Like, how does that, like, how did we get off of men lacking discipline? Like the intelligence level, like if you were writing a paper, right? A real paper, they couldn't write it like this. They would fail. They would fail miserably because you've got to connect the dots as to how that even makes sense. How does being kicked out of the home, what does that have to do with you lacking discipline? Nothing. Because if you had discipline, even if you was kicked out of the home, you still would be able to thrive and fly with life. You see what I'm saying? I was kicked out the home too when I was a little girl, but I had to figure it out. Do you understand me? So not only this, right? I go on to say, I mean, it didn't apply to the conversation at hand. It's just the truth. As you could see, 2 women liked mine, 2 men liked his, or one hearted his. That tells you that the education level is really not even there. So I hit him on that. And of course, he said something back. And in my mind, I was just like, you are so, like, this is the thing. He told me, well, can you comprehend what I said or something like that? Just said it back to me, basically. And I said, I'm not going to argue with ignorance because I don't even know how to argue with that right now because that's not the topic. That's so weird. Like, what do I look like arguing with you about something that was never the topic to begin with? I'm not about to get into all that with you. And then he says, what did he say? He said, well, stop looking in the mirror and you doing the same. I said, I look good in the mirror, fully educated, and am the woman she speaks of, sir. And whatever I said, and am the woman she speaks of. So I was talking about the girl with I was talking about the girl who made the post. But then what's crazy is I told him, I said, look, because he goes on to say something about how, and I guess it's what he meant, was that I am the girl that knows I dated a man who was less than, who I thought I was less than and had babies by them. And I'm thinking, oh my God, I said, you're so immature. Like at some point, because I told him I told him he was immature. And after he said that, I said, man, I could go back and say that I don't even know. Like, I'm like, dude, I don't even know you from a can of paint, right? I don't have to prove myself to you. What I do know is my daughter's father got more than you. You know what I'm saying? So it was one of these things for me that was really, is that what we talking about right now? Really? Is I know that I dated a lesser man? No, if anything, the man that I was involved with, in my personal opinion, is doing circles around a lot of these men in terms of what he has and the resources he has and everything else. I mean, I'm just saying. So I don't know, but what I told him again, it's immature. And then I finally just blocked him because I could see the conversation is going nowhere, right? You're not even on topic. And then you think throwing jabs at me is going to like somehow hurt me. I don't care. You don't know me. Like, you don't know not a damn thing about me, sir. So I'm not the type. Once I start to see a man really become, because I get the banter. Like, if you want to talk shit, talk shit. But at least talk shit when you're standing on something. You ain't standing on nothing. This argument of Section 8, the fuck does that have to do with men being held responsible for their choices? And then what's so cold about it is I bet you probably have women who like it too. Because women don't know. I mean, I don't want to say they don't know no better. Women are just doing anything they can to say that they're in a relationship, and that's crazy. So that's all I wanted to share with y'all. I thought it was interesting, you guys. I just wanted to share that with you guys because I don't think people understand. Like, folks are losing because of their choices in life. And like, at some point, you got to recognize when you're doing too much. You just got to recognize that. So shout out to this girl right here, man. Shout out to her. I don't think she was talking about the Section 8 girl. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that either. But I just don't believe that that's not the first thing that comes to mind. So let me know what y'all think down in the comments below. With that being said, I'm out. Peace.